All right. Well, welcome to Dance Speaks. I'm Devin Carney, Artistic Director for Kansas City Ballet, and I am thrilled to have this chance to talk with Betsy Coker and Lila York about the amazing work that's going to be performed in October at the Muriel Kaufman Theater in the Performing Arts Center. The work is called Celts, and I cannot tell you how exciting it is to see this work come to Kansas City. This has been a dream of mine for many years. Lila and I have spoken about it. And then, of course, pandemic sort of took over all of our lives and sort of put everything on hold. This production was supposed to be performed a year ago, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it was to close last year's season. And we are really excited to finally bring it to the stage. So tonight I have with me Betsy Coker, she likes to go by Betsy, as well as Lila York, who is having a little trouble with her actual Zoom account, but thankfully we've got modern technology in that she is on a speakerphone with me. Here she is. You can see, here's Lila York.
So hello, good evening, welcome.
It's wonderful to have you with us, Lila, and I'm thrilled that Kansas City Ballet is going to get to do this work. It means a lot to me, this work, and I'm really thrilled that you feel comfortable enough, having done other works with Kansas City Ballet, to give us the opportunity to be able to perform this landmark work of yours. It is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and I just cannot believe it was 25 years ago that it was created. But before we get into it, I wanted to just share a little bit with the audience about you, Lila. So bear with me, okay? Because I think it's important everybody understands the incredible background you have in the dance world. Lila was born in Albany, outside of Albany, New York, and started ballet classes at the age of 13. Went on to Skidmore College at Saratoga Springs, where she first encountered the renowned teacher, choreographer, Paul Sanasardo, who later ended up becoming, interestingly enough, artistic director for Bathsheba Dance Company in Tel Aviv, Israel. After college, Lila moved to New York City, and she actually had a degree in literature, in writing. And correct me if I say anything wrong, Lila, okay?
Okay.
And had a change of heart, which I'd love to talk about. She was pursuing a literary career and then decided to go into dance and pursue that more on the professional level. So after college, she went to New York City, studied with Sanasardo as well as with Ailey and Graham. And in '72, joined Paul Taylor Dance Company. At Paul Taylor Dance Company's heyday of its creative process, Paul Taylor created so many works. And Lila had the opportunity to be appearing in over 60 of his works during her 12-year tenure with Paul Taylor's company. After that, well, actually, one thing I think was really wonderful that I read about is that the New Yorker magazine called Lila York the finest dancer by far to have belonged to the Paul Taylor Dance Company. And critics often referred to her as the longtime muse of Paul Taylor. Those are pretty remarkable comments to have in print. I'm sure, Lila, you get used to that, but I find that remarkable. That's a wonderful compliment of your abilities as an artist. After her performance career, she's created many, many works since 1992. And the list is incredibly impressive, with Birmingham Royal Ballet, Royal Danish Ballet, San Francisco Ballet, Boston Ballet, of course, Norwegian National Ballet, Houston Ballet, PNB, Ballet West, Ballet Memphis, Cincinnati Ballet, Orlando Ballet, and the list is just too long. We don't have enough time. There are just so many names of highly respected companies: Alvin Ailey Dance Theater Repertory Ensemble, and of course the Juilliard Dance Ensemble. And also between 89 92, Lila directed a program on new choreography for Pacific Northwest Ballet, which I think is a wonderful thing. Always pursuing new ballets are always difficult. So it's great to have someone who is willing to do that kind of hard work to create new choreography and create an environment for new choreography. Recently, Lila worked on a ballet, a full-length ballet that premiered with Royal Winnipeg, based on Margaret Atwood's 1985 dystopian novel, The Handmaid's Tale, which was received with incredible accolades. And interestingly enough, it was created 2 years before filming began on the wildly popular television series that started airing in 2017. The same thing holds true with Celts. It was created just around the time that Riverdance was just barely starting to become a word anybody knew anything about. So Lila tends to have the smarts, the intuition, let's say, to be in front of these kind of things before, it's not following on the coattails of, but actually paving the way for these works to be seen in a different way. Elizabeth, otherwise known as Betsy, has had a wonderful career and is currently an assistant arts professor of dance at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and is co-artistic director of the Sean Curran Company. She has an incredible educational career with having received her master's and doctorate degrees in motor learning and control from Teachers College and Columbia University, and holds a BA in psychology concentration in dance from Columbia University, which blows me away. That's amazing. Prior to that, she was a dancer with, had a professional career with Washington Ballet, and trained also at the Ballet Nacional de Cuba, which is really cool to read about that as well. Lots of incredible research on the body and how it moves through space, with research on postural control and motion capture technology and motor imagery for dancers. It's pretty amazing the kind of work that she has done. And it just goes to show how incredibly smart dancers are, and how much they are actually adept at being able to further their careers beyond dance. She has also staged quite a few companies: Royal Winnipeg, Opera Theatre St. Louis, Opera de Montreal, Great Lakes Chamber Music Festival, Yale Repertory Theatre, and she has been staging works for Lila York. So now you know a little bit about these two wonderful guests that are on the program tonight. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the beginnings of Celts, Lila. It's celebrating its 25th anniversary. It was created it premiered on March 21st, 1996. I had the wonderful fortune to be a member of Boston Ballet at that time. I was a principal dancer and was able to be in the original cast of this work. And it was exciting at the moment, and quite a thrill to perform. And 25 years later, to see Kansas City Ballet begin to take on the torch of Lila York's Celts has been really exciting to watch. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about this incredible work, Celts. It's been done by 13 companies that I'm aware of. The first being Boston Ballet, and then major companies across the country, as well as in Japan as well, have performed this work. It's an
we're up to 22 companies.
22, incredible! Wow.
Wow, isn't it?
Yes, you have to update your website. That's incredible, and I think the thing that speaks amazingly well of your work, Lila, is the fact that 25 years later, It's still going strong. 22 companies have performed it. I'm thrilled that we are the latest ones to be in the roster to have performed it. It's an exciting work in every respect. I'm going to do a few quotes from different critics that have said some really wonderful things about Lila, about your work, Celts. At its premiere, one critic wrote that Lila York's Celts is an astonishing array of dance images of Ireland, a piece that is both profound and thrilling. Celts builds, evoking 1,000 years of strife and then a burning joy. There's not a whiff of cliche in it, nor sentimentality. This dance is in a rush to tell us many things. In its passion, dignity, and invention, York's Celts is everything the Dublin via Vegas river dance is not. It offers exactly the kind of lift the world needs now. Now, that was 25 years ago. And you know what? I totally agree with that last part of that statement. I agree with all of it, but that last part, it offers exactly the kind of lift the world needs now. We need this kind of work right now. We need that joy, that excitement. And I am so thrilled that this ballet is going to be the thing that concludes, is the final sort of grand finale of the very first production we will have done in our theater since February of 2020, when we closed Swan Lake. It's a stunning work. It really is. And there are several other critics that I looked at, but this is plenty of that right there. It's exciting. Lila, we go back 26 years, maybe even 27, was the first time that I know of that you worked with Boston Ballet when you staged Company B for Paul Taylor's. So that happened. How did the process begin of Celts coming to life? Bruce Marks was the artistic director at the time. Did the two of you just say, let's do something Irish based, or what happened?
No, nothing. It was nothing like that. It's a fun story. Bruce had come to New York and he saw a piece I did for Juilliard called Rapture. And then he called the next day and gave me a commission. And I said, okay. And he said, he wanted me to use Rapture was also a very large cast piece, and so he wanted a very large cast. But he said that one program per season at Boston Ballet had to be done without orchestra, and so the music had to be not playable by a traditional orchestra. And so he sort of suggested that I use pop music, but something not songs. And I was not really keen on doing pop music. And at the same time, my father was about to take the family to Ireland to see our roots, to see where my grandmother was born in Cork. And so I was reading Irish history. I was reading books on Irish history at the time. And so that was very much in my consciousness. And so I said, Irish music, because there are several Irish instruments that are surely not playable by regular American orchestra musicians. So that satisfied that requirement. And then I went out and started studying clogging, and step dancing, and then figured out a way to adapt that to ballet dancers, to ballet technique, just by really using there's step dancing is wonderful, and there's so many shapes that they can execute that are really not the way we are trained, but they do a lot of turning in from the hip and then turning out in the air. And, it's a step called a double click, where they jump in the air and they turn their hips, turn in, turn out, turn in, and then land. It's really quite remarkable. So I sort of used what I learned from those classes to adapt it to ballet dancers. And then because I was reading Irish history, I sort of structured the piece in chronologically, sort of beginning with ancient Celtic history. Ireland was named after a prehistoric fertility goddess named Ire, and she had a mate, Mac Green. So I put those two characters in the piece, and they open the piece in a kind of Stonehenge setting. And then the piece progresses kind of through Irish history with like images of Irish history all the way through. And then the men's dance is Celtic warriors, you know, because the tribes were always fighting. And they were so interesting because they went into battle, you know, if you saw the movie Braveheart,
right,
where they were all wearing kilts. In fact, they went into battle naked with just this little belt.
Wow.
And they were really, really vicious fighters, and they would use their teeth and just, you know, they were famously vicious fighters. So I just sort of tried to use all of those ideas about Celtic warriors, you know, in the piece.
Lila?
And then, you know, at the time, Ireland was also, at that time, Apple Computer had moved in there, and Ireland was at a very, very high point. And so it was really, it made sense to progress the piece to this very happy, joyous kind of ending, because Ireland was just in an unprecedented prosperity at that time. And so that was sort of the rough progression of the piece.
Maybe we've got some video. I wish you could watch with us, Lila, but I think I'd love to show, we have a section.
Yeah, please.
It's section 1, which refers to the men's dance that you were talking about, which we're going to draw up, and we're going to see 2 parts of it. We're going to see both our company first preparing it with, of course, Betsy staging it. So maybe we could get the audio up for that so our audience could hear it.
Yeah.
Again. One of the things, as you can tell, you know, it doesn't just magically occur how you get a lot of dancers who are all individual artists to be together. It takes rehearsal, and a lot of rehearsal. And Betsy's been doing an incredible job, having only finished her 2nd day of staging with us. And this video you're watching is basically going through the progression of a rehearsal. And they, as you can tell, they get a little bit more together with each take of this, which I think is a great sort of visualization of just a simple couple hours of rehearsal. So you saw a little bit of fancy footwork there, and I think it was interesting to see some close-up work. Now let's take a look at a little excerpt from Boston Ballet performing it. And, you know, the thing is, like Lila, like you said, you know, I mean, it's amazing that the men went into battle with just a little belt on. but of course we're not going to do that on stage, but you get that sort of representation by the fact that the men are wearing basically these short kilts.
Yes.
And here they are. We can turn the audio up on this so they can hear it. Great. Lila, while we're on the subject of the men's dance, I think it's really cool the way you were able to communicate this rawness of men on the moors fighting each other, and little spoiler alert, there is somebody who wins at the end of that dance, that section. But what were you thinking? How did you come up with that particular concept? And the music is just drums, right? It's just purely drums.
Yeah, actually, I commissioned that section from a friend of mine who's a percussionist. And what he did is we went in the recording studio, and I told him my parameters. It had to be this long, and I wanted this, wanted an opening and ending and variations in the middle. And he overdubbed himself in several percussion instruments 5 times.
Wow.
So that's one percussionist overdubbed 5 times.
My goodness.
I love it. He did a wonderful job, just a great job with it. It's really kind of gets your heart going.
Yeah. It and what's cool is that it doesn't sound contemporary, quote unquote. It has, like you were saying, it has a ancient kind of feel to it. Like, you would have drummers standing on the edge of a battlefield while this is going on. It's really striking.
He had access. He had lots of, percussionists have, what they call toys.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of instruments, and he had, I told him exactly what I was going for, that it couldn't sound African and it couldn't sound Latin. It had to be, this was ancient Celtic music. And so he really found, among his collection of toys, he found instruments that worked. There's an Australian instrument called a didgeridoo or something. You swing it in the air and it makes a whirring sound. I mean, he had lots of instruments that we're not really that familiar with, that created this kind of it was kind of a tapestry of sounds,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wonderful. Speaking of the music, beyond this one commission work, I know that you spent a little bit of time. There used to be this company called Tower Records, where in the old days, in order for us to figure out music to choreograph to, or just music to listen to, you had to go to a music store to listen to things. So I read that you spent an exorbitant amount of time at Tower Records trying to decide on the type of general music that the whole work would have.
Yeah, I am the owner of the world's largest collection of Irish music. That I can tell you. And I kept gravitating toward the ones I found that had orchestra in them. There were Irish instruments with orchestra, because then you had a much fuller sound.
Yeah.
And so, 2 of the sections are smaller. They're the chieftains without orchestra. So it's not all backed by orchestra, but it's all, it's all Irish instruments.
Yeah.
And Irish composers too.
And I think you're quoted as calling it, generally you came up with the idea of Celtic jazz as sort of a genre, if you want to say, of how this kind of music would feel, which I think is kind of cool, because you're half Irish and you're Scott Irish, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Got
so
Irish.
it kind of blended these different feels, all into one work, which I think is really, you touch on a lot of different sort of arenas of music in this one work, which I think is really interesting, that how you were able to do that.
And I think, Irish music is incredibly infectious. It
Yes.
seems to reach people. And the first time that I staged Celts outside of the United States was in Norway at Norwegian National
Ooh.
Ballet. And I was really, I wasn't certain it was going to work. I wasn't certain that they would respond to it. I mean, Boston obviously has a huge Irish population there. So that was given. But I thought, is this going to go over in Norway? And it did. It did. I mean, it had the same response to it. And I think it has so much to do with the music being so infectious and uplifting and just kind of carrying you away. It's kind of irresistible music.
Yeah. Yeah. If there were a work that's going to make you jump out of your seat at the end of it and do some sort of jig up the aisle to exit, this is the work. It is definitely infectious, musically as well as choreographically. We've got a question or two popping in here, so I thought I'd ask this one now. The work, it's not what you would call authentic, reproduced Irish dance, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
on that.
correct.
Right.
That's correct. Although dancers who did step dancing practiced step dancing when they were children. It's primarily children who do it, but could see the connections, and they understood how I arrived at what I arrived at. But it is definitely not authentic. And most, there's two kinds of step dancing. There's clogging, which is done with very heavy tap shoes,
right.
And then there's and then there's soft shoe.
Right. When you created the work, you're mainly a soft shoe choreographer. Would I say that? Is that wrong to say that? Or would you, when you're choreographing, you prefer ballet shoes as opposed to point shoes for women? Or are you 50-50?
I really do both. It really depends on the work and what's appropriate to the work, to that work.
Yeah.
And the company and where they're comfortable. I'd say more than half of my works are on point, actually.
So and
half of Celts is on point. It really is.
Right.
The brown girl is on point, and there are 2 point sections for the core women. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I was leading toward, was my question of the fact that you have them in soft shoes and point shoes throughout the course of the work. I think that's really interesting and fun that you see both in one work. It's not exactly, I will say, from a dancer's point of view, it's a little more challenging to go from soft shoes to point shoes, and because the feet tend to spread, if I could say, when you're not in point shoes. So to get them back into the point shoes can be something that takes a little more work to get them back into the point shoes after wearing the soft shoes.
That's right, and I structured the piece so that they have 6 minutes.
Right, they have time
in between. They have enough time to change shoes and actually kind of, adjust their weight.
Right.
But yes, you're right. It is a challenge to do that.
Now, did you actually study clogging? Did you say that earlier? And
yes, I did. Yeah.
Right. So when it came time to actually create the work, it's September of 1995, and you're coming to Boston Ballet to start the process. It didn't open until March, but you were brought in early in the season to get started on it. When you're creating a work like this, did you come into the room and have fully realized phrases of choreography, or was it based upon the type of dancers that were in the room. You knew them from your Paul Taylor staging of Company B a few years earlier. Were you more just inspired by the specific dancers in the room, or did you already have a pretty straightforward plan?
Well, I always have a plan, and I do a lot of work, dance work before I start. But because I knew the dancers, I knew how to cast it. So, I said, okay, I'm going to do something like this for Laszlo. I'm going to do something like this for Rob Wallace. I knew where, I kind of knew where I was going with it. And then once I'm in the studio with the dancers, I have an initial kind of map in my head, but it changes every day depending on what's going on in the studio. I mean, it's a dialogue. It's not me spitting out steps and counts. It's a dialogue. I'm working with the dancers. So all of that, I think you have to be prepared, because otherwise you waste rehearsal time. So you really need to do your preparation, but at the same time, you're working with the dancers, so it's all a process.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Since we talked about Rob Wallace, he was the originator of what's called the Green Boy. Maybe we could pull up section 2, and we're gonna. Okay, so before you start this video, this is day 1. I have to say, this is pretty remarkable. It's day 1 of rehearsal for this variation. And it's one of, I think, I know at least 2, and sort of a third variation, but it's only one of them, all right? And Betsy, you had just finished staging this, and this is a film toward the end of that first day of rehearsal, which is just 2 hours total. That they had to work on this, and you will see the difficult kind of fast footwork that is a signature of Lila's interpretation of Irish dance that is throughout all of Celts. It's just phenomenal what they have to learn. Okay, let's take a look. This is, by the way, this is on the left, you have Javier Morales. In the middle, you have Josh Kiesel, and on the right you have Cameron Thomas. Okay, let's get the volume up on this. Yeah, that's pretty darn amazing after one rehearsal to have that much proficiency already. That is a solo. You saw 3 men working on it, but it's actually for one person. So maybe I could ask Betsy a little bit about this process of being a stager. To stage a work of Lila's, this is a significant work. It's a large ballet with a large cast. What do you do? Lila calls you and says, "Hey, could you stage, my work for Kansas City Ballet?"
Sure. First, I say thank you for allowing me to, have a part of the life of this dance. Like, dances have lives, and now I'm so happy to be in the sort of family of this dance. I will say that I think it's class change. I'm at the studio, so if you hear bustling young dancers running around, that's what that is. So I actually this is the first time I've ever staged a dance that I didn't perform. And which has its own challenges. I was aware of this dance for like, I mean, since I was a teenager. I was in rep companies, somehow never at the time it was ever done. I missed the window. I always wanted to do it. I loved to jump. I loved to move fast. And I just loved this dance so much. And so I mean, it's like perfect kismet for me. You know, I mean, one thing about Lila is that she notates everything. So I have her notebook, I have my notes, I have several, you know, every time it was changed perhaps from different, you know, versions of small changes that happened at different companies or different dancers that did the versions, it's all notated. It's really, really clear. Also, Lila and I had worked together several times, but on I assisted her in when she created Handmaid's Tale. So I think getting into this project, I can read her notes. That was a huge, you know, sometimes that's half of the work is like learning how a choreographer notates their work. So as I went into the studio in like early August. I'd been watching the videos for a few months. I'd watched the videos with the book in front of me, reading the notation, and then started going to the studio a couple months ago, just to teach it to myself. I mean, that's one thing to have a visual sort of recognition of a dance. It's a totally different thing to have it really in your body. Um, and then, you know, I came here and it's like the dancers here are very, they're just really fast learners. So it's, you know, we've been moving through it really quickly, be with the notes, them with their bodies, and pretty quickly we've been able to, you know, converge on.
Cool. It's great. It is amazing what's happened in a short 2 days. I wanted to ask you, you know, obviously you're restaging a work of Lila York's, right? One that has a major sort of history around pretty much the world, right? Do you feel any different sort of pressure, you know, bringing this particular work to the stage?
It's funny, like, I mean, in one way I feel personally connected to because I just always wanted to do it, you know, and so this is my way now of like somehow I get to sort of do it without, I could not physically perform this dance now at this point in my life, but definitely it requires young legs, I think. But I don't know. I mean, it's just the pressure of something that's not in my body. I think that's the real challenge is sort of using my words, using the notes, and really relying on the dancers to train into their own body.
Sure.
How much? I just want to jump in here and say that you know, Betsy is just such a superb artist on so many levels. I can't even begin to sing her praises enough. And wicked smart. I mean, yeah. On top of everything, and I'm so lucky to that she was available to do this. There's really no one else I think I would trust to do this other than Betsy. And we worked together on Handmaid's Tale for a year. So yeah, she's amazing. She's an amazing dancer, incredible dancer herself. And just mind like a trap, you know. She's so smart, and dancers love her. Dancers love her. She's just such a wonderful person. So she gets aces on all counts for me.
All right, we've got that on. We've got a recording of that, Betsy. Okay. How much interaction do you have with Lila during the process? Obviously you guys talk beforehand, Betsy, you know, and there's back and forth communication, but you know, in the heat of a staging process, are you like daily back and forth? How often do you guys, or is it just as need basis?
Dependent really on the piece. Like Handmaid's Tale, Lila was making new as I was assisting her, and that, you know, we worked, like Lila said, we worked together for a year, rehearsing every day for a few weeks at a time. So that was a very different process. I think with this, it's a set work. It's been done so many times. And again, like I said, it's notated, there's videos, it's very well documented. So I really just needed a lot of time on my own to
Mhm.
I would sort of go on my own and read through, see what didn't make sense, see, oh, this version they do it like this version they do it like that. Is that a really tight canon, or did someone mess up? I was like, go back to the notes, try to reconcile. And at the end of that, several times I just had a list of questions and called Lila and just said, okay, we'll go from the top and I'll ask you all of my questions.
So
Um,
you're a little bit of a detective, aren't you, when you're staging a ballet that's 25 years old, right? In terms of trying to find the most authentic version, since
it's
there's 22 companies that have done it,
the fun part is it's like a puzzle. And I think once I've learned it's always in the notes. I go back to the notes and I think, okay, then the puzzle makes sense. You find that last piece and it all clicks in together, what the pattern is. There's very complex patterns throughout the dance.
Well, speaking of that, complex patterns, I think this might be the appropriate moment to show a little bit more of your process, Betsy, of staging the work. This is going to be section 3 from our list of videos that we have prepared. And this shows Betsy working on the large group section. We can hear a little audio on this since it's pretty short. Yeah, as you can see, that's pretty complicated footwork. Betsy, I swear it looks like you have performed this ballet the way you got the footwork down. It's pretty impressive.
Calves would not be able to handle it now. I should note also when I would call Lila and ask these specific questions, like, I know, of course, she knows the dance, it's her dance, but Lila, I think you could do every part in this dance just from absolute memory, probably on the spot.
What do you think, Lila?
Yeah, I've staged it so many times that it's the only. I have made a lot of dances. This is the only one I know by heart.
Wow.
I really do. So yeah, so I actually can answer questions because it's I really this one I know inside out.
This is like your serenade, like Balanchine's serenade. This is yours. This is definitely a fantastic work. And I believe it'll still be around, when we get up to Serenade's age, which is closing in on, geez, what is it? 50 some years. And it's no, 80 some years.
Wow.
And that's the work that opens this production. So we have an incredible signature work that begins our evening, an amazing blowout signature work to close the evening, which is just really exciting show.
Wonderful.
How did you, Lila, and Betsy cross paths to have this incredible working relationship? What happened? Where was that the moment the connection occurred?
Well, first, Betsy, I remember you from ARB. I can't remember if you were.
I know cross paths so many times. Washington Ballet was the first time that I did a work of yours with Jazz Age. And that was
I was artist in residence at Barnard for a semester, and Betsy was at Barnard, and so I choreographed a couple of dances, and I got to work with her then. And then I needed an assistant for Handmaid's Tale who could work both in soft shoe and on point. And believe me, you know, could do modern and classical work. And so Betsy was right there.
Wow.
She was the woman for the job.
Wow.
And so and it was just she made my life so much easier. It was a huge project. You know, Full Evening Works are big projects, and I don't know how I could have gotten through it actually without her. She was amazing. So I was just thrilled that she was available to do this.
Well, I can tell you, so I was in, I think I must have been 17 or 18 in a cast of a dance that Lila made at Washington Ballet, just before I went to college. And then when my first year in college, I had stopped dancing. I said, I just want to go to college and have that seemed like a novel experience. And I was walking down Broadway and I ran into Lila and she said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm in college." And she said, "Oh, great. I'm making a dance. You should come see it." And I was like, oh my God, I haven't danced in like a year. This is a disaster. But it was just and I never looked back. I mean, I was sort of a lifesaver to be back in the studio again. And Lila, that was MIPS. I love that dance. I miss that dance.
What dance was that? Say it again, Betsy.
MIPS.
MIPS?
Millions of instructions per second.
Oh, right.
That's millions of instructions per second. Yeah, it's a
Right.
computer term.
Super fast. That's very fast movement. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's what a lot of Celts is. Millions of
Right.
instructions per second.
Yeah.
Well, we have a question, a couple of questions that have come in while we've been chatting. Lila, one person who's listening to us and watching wanted to know if there is a particular segment of Celts that you might say is sort of your personal signature moment.
Personal signature moment. I don't think I could isolate one element of it or one moment of it. I think, you know, if I were going to dance Celts myself, I would want to be Red Girl.
Yeah.
That's what I would want to do. That's the role I would want to do.
Yeah.
But I felt such an affinity for Irish history
Mhm.
that the whole piece has a lot of meaning. It's very personal for me. It has a lot of meaning for me, and and my grandmother's origins. You know, my grandmother's
Right.
life there.
Right.
Yeah.
How wonderful. So it really, the whole work is your personal signature moment.
Well, kind of.
Yeah. I think I wanted to show one more section. This would be section 5. Maybe before we play this, you could talk a little bit, Lila. This is a section, the brown couple section with the 13 women on the floor, you know, that are dancing around. It's a short section from that. It seems like this section, the woman represents the earth. Is that true? That's my interpretation of that.
You know, it's totally open to interpretation.
Okay.
I mean, I could tell you what inspired it,
All
but
right.
it's only because that was in my head, but it's not spelled out in the choreography, so audiences would never get that. But the women are the ocean. Anyway,
Okay.
the women are the ocean, and each of the 3 appearances of the brown couple end in a whirling dervish, and so there's a whirling dervish in this one too. But it actually came from a folk tale, an Irish folk tale about a fisherman and his wife, and the fisherman drowns at sea, and the wife goes, you know, collect his soul from the sea. So it was based on that folk tale. But it's clearly not literal, and so that doesn't no one but me would know that. So
Okay, that helped a lot. I think we're going to play this video again because I really want everyone to hear the music that's going with this because it is the calmest section.
yeah,
Let's
it's
get the
chieftain.
audio up. Great, great. Yeah, I love that. Well, I have a personal affinity to that section because that was the section I worked on.
Yeah.
But I just love the calmness of that music you chose for that section. It's such a, I think that the sign of a really good work is that you go on a journey and that particular piece of music takes us to somewhere quite different than other parts of the ballet. And I appreciate that moment of calmness is in there because it is an incredibly fast-paced work. And this really slows us down for a second in a really lovely way. Gives us an opportunity to breathe a little bit and and get ready for some a massive grand finale, which is just so exciting. Another person has asked, and I don't know which one of you would like to answer this. How difficult or challenging is it to teach ballet dancers a different type of movement, this being Irish dance, and the fast, crazy, unusual footwork that turn in, turn out, and fifth, and kick one side, kick the other side, and bend the knee backwards, and it's just crazy the amount of stuff they have to learn in one count, 5 steps. Is that how challenging is that, this particular ballet?
I found dancers are really very adaptable. I mean, I've never found dancers have a real problem with any of that. It's some things. I think the hardest thing is that in step dancing you have to glue your arms to your side,
Yes.
and make fists. And because they did that in step dancing to hold the tilt step, and that's the hardest thing I think for dancers because they're so used to using their arms, and your arms want to float up so that you can use them, right? And so the hardest thing is keeping the arms down. But as far as the footwork, their dancers, they're just so well trained that I find they can do it. I don't know, Betsy can maybe have her own, express her own
Sure.
experience with that.
What do you think?
That seems exactly right. I mean, it's also dancers, and I think ballet dancers, and particularly in the sort of context of a ballet company, they have to learn the work so fast. So their minds are really primed to just like filter information, remember it. It's pretty incredible how quickly they learn. And then, today is day 2. So I've been throwing as much as possible at them. They've been soaking it up. And then, the process after that is to really drill the style to make sure that they have the bandwidth to be able to do the style. They're doing very well.
So steps first, style second.
Well, I mean, they sort of have to come at the same time. You don't want them to get into certain habits. But I think, there is a point at which it's like you learn it enough that you don't have to keep thinking about it and counting madly in your head. And you can divert some of that attention to really like making sure that your arms aren't floating up or making sure that your body is leaning at the right angle. Yeah.
So there's one section we have not watched yet, and it's it is, it's not the very end of the ballet, but it's during the finale. I thought that'd be a fun section to sort of close us out. We only have a few minutes left. So while we're watching this short segment of the performance, please, if you have any more questions, go ahead and type it in the chat. Here we go. Wow. Wow, that section just gets me so excited. I just want to get up and go. Lila, I have to tell you, today was, I sat in just at the very end of rehearsals today, and they were working on that section, right? Betsy, that's the section they were working on.
No, we were actually working on the first section, but we got all the end, yeah, of that first.
I got kind of emotional, Lila, to think 25 years ago you were making this for the first time, and it's just, I'm in a very different place now, and it's just so exciting that I have the chance to bring your work to another audience that's never experienced Celts. They're very, the community here is very excited about Celts coming to Kansas City, and I'm just excited about the whole production that we're getting back on stage, and it's just such an honor and a joy that Celts is very much at the center of this moment of renewal, for the dance scene here in Kansas City, and for all the dancers. This will be our first time in our main theater. We will be on stage without our masks. We're all vaccinated. So there's going to be such a joy to the production as a whole. But wow, to be on the other side of 25 years and see how fresh, new, exciting your work is it just makes me want to, I don't know what, it makes me want to cry and be happy at the same time. But, thank you.
I'm thrilled that you invited the piece into your repertory. I really am. You have a wonderful company. Dancers are terrific. So
thank you,
thrilled
Lila.
that you're doing it.
Thank you. And for those listening, this is, I think, from what I can gather, this is Lila's fourth work being presented by Kansas City Ballet. Over the years, she has been here to have other works done on the company. So it's really exciting to bring this biggest of her works to Kansas City. But I cannot say enough about how exciting this is, and how thankful I am that you found just the right person for Celts in Betsy, which is being proven out quite quickly here with a short 2 days of rehearsal behind us now. So
she's pretty magnificent.
Yeah,
one of a kind.
Looking forward to seeing her dive deeper into this process with us here. Well, sadly, I can't believe it's an hour just went by. It's 7 o'clock and we're supposed to be done around 7. I want to say a big thank you to Betsy for your hard work on this, in advance of the more hard work that's coming up. And Lila, man, oh man, sorry we couldn't see your face tonight, but we figured it out. And every time you were talking, just so you know, your lovely photograph was being shown on the screen. So you were kind of here.
Okay.
But thank you so much, Lila, for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Betsy, as well. This has been really fun. And don't forget, come and see the show. We're really excited about it. And at the Kaufman Center, you will not be disappointed, I promise you. All right. Well, thank you so much, and everybody have an awesome night. And thank you for tuning in. and
Okay.
listening. Thank you, Lila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Betsy.